Good evening, good afternoon, good day to you. Welcome to a special edition of Bayou Sports Talk here down in the Bayou of Louisiana. I know it's late in the evening, guys, but we have some stuff we got to talk about. So introduce yourself, Coach. We missing Ray tonight, so shout out to Ray. He has some prior commitments. Go ahead, holler at him, Coach. And I'm Kay, your
It's
moderator.
it's me, Coach 67 Sports TV. Shout out to the awesome and amazing LDBC, Lions Den Boston community. Shout out to the greatest university in the world, the Southern University, home of the mighty Jaguars. We giving y'all a special late night edition of Bayou Sports Talk for episode 35. I know many individuals are going to ask, well, why didn't you air at your normal 2 p.m. Central Standard Time? Today time. I'll get to that in a minute. I'm gonna give you some Southern University clips because I went to Southern University's last Saturday game for the season. Southern University men and women, they played against Bethune-Cookman. So I'll drop some other content in regards to that particular game here on the channel. But let's get this episode about your sports talk. Let's get it cracking this evening.
All right, guys, we have some great topics that we're going to get into. So let's go ahead and start with our regular topic. Coach, what you have on boxing for us real quick?
Boxing is a little bit slow at this point. However, the big thing, the big news is the fact that Floyd Mayweather Jr., he's doing a little bit of hating on one of my favorite fighters, Devin the Dream Haney. And Devin the Dream Haney and Ryan Garcia, they're going to fight in New York. And, of course, we know Devin the Dream Haney has a little bit of a rivalry with Abdul Wahid or Gervonta Tank Davis. There was some sparring that they had several years ago. Floyd Mayweather Jr. had the footage for that, and he gave Ryan Garcia an edited version of that sparring session. And as a result, Ryan Garcia, he uploaded that sparring session and essentially made it seem as if Tank got the better of Devin the Dream Haney, which wasn't the case. But other than that, the whole fiasco between Devin the Dream Haney and Ryan Garcia and Floyd Mayweather Jr. dry hating on him, even though he mentored him at one point. That's pretty much the biggest thing. And pretty soon, Anthony Joshua and Francis Ngannou, they're going to fight pretty soon. But other than that, there's not a whole lot going on in the sport of boxing. There are some things going on. In my opinion, there are nothing of note to really mention, if that makes sense.
Okay. All right, Coach. Real
Okay, you cut off for a minute.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, what do you have for us in the NBA and with the Pelicans, Coach?
Well, I mean, the New Orleans Pelicans, they are an up and down team. Recently, they beat the Indiana Pacers. In fact, they beat the Indiana Pacers twice. They beat them in a back-to-back. They beat them Wednesday they lost to them Wednesday 123 to 114, and they beat them yesterday 129 to 102. So for the most part, they're an up and down type team. I'm glad they were able to get the win the second go around. So I mean, more than anything, hopefully, like in the next month and a half or so, they can really get everything going in the right direction. Brandon Ingram, he had a big game. He had 34 points. Zion only had 8. Jonas Valanciunas had 15. Herb Jones had 6. C.J. McCollum had 14. Trey Murphy III had 28 big points off the bench. So more than anything, like Raymond said, King Ray, the Pelicans are an up and down type team. But more than anything, we just want them to hit the upswing at the right time of year, get the momentum going into the playoffs, and make a nice, good, deep playoff run.
All right, coach. Well, let's move on and let's talk about All-Star Weekend. Let's recap that real quick. In my opinion, it wasn't all that. It seems like it's even with the 3-point contest, what they were trying to do. I see what they were trying to do, but it didn't tickle my fancy as well as just with it's just different things they were doing. The slam dunk contest wasn't all of that. So, coach, what are your thoughts?
In my opinion, the All Star Weekend, this 2024 version of it, was complete trash. They need to revamp it and overhaul the entire weekend. The biggest thing I used to look forward to when I was a kid for All Star Weekend was the slam dunk contest. And a slam dunk contest was just complete and utter garbage in my estimation. I think the thing they need to do to revamp the slam dunk contest to make it more compelling and interesting, the first thing they need to do is these players that really need to be in the dunk contest need to be in it. I don't know if you need to offer them greater financial incentives, but I saw Paul Pierce recently. He was talking about the slam dunk contest. He was saying years ago when Dominique Wilkins and Michael Jordan were competing head to head in the slam dunk contest, in that day and time, you wanted your biggest emerging upcoming stars to be in the slam dunk contest. That was a way for them to elevate their brand and take their brand to the next level. We've seen it with players like Dominique Wilkins, Michael Jordan, D. Brown, those type of players, even players that really didn't become superstar or all-star caliber players. They did garner a lot of attention that particular weekend by having an extremely impressive performance in the slam dunk contest. Now, I hate to say it because of LeBron. I think since LeBron was the superstar that he was and he never entered into the slam dunk contest, now these younger players, they don't want to be in the slam dunk contest. So you don't have guys like Ja Morant. You don't have, even though Ja Morant is injured, you don't have guys like Zion Williamson, even though he's probably overweight at this point. A lot of these young players that really need to be in the slam dunk contest, they're not in it. But more than anything, I think that would really draw a lot of attention to the slam dunk contest, going a lot of interest. It's the fact that if you brought in some of these street ballers, because at one point I was real big in the and one mixtapes and some of these other like type street ball type programming, whether it's something that was centered around Rucker Park or the Drew League and anything like that. A lot of those guys, if they were in the NBA slam dunk contest, they would win it. And considering the player that won the slam dunk contest, he was an NBA player, but he's currently in the G League. You can't say it's not even relegated strictly to the NBA at this point. So if you want to bring in outsiders, if they're not NBA players, you might as well bring in the best. I don't know if you have to do a nationwide tour. You get the best dunkers, and maybe you could get the top 2 nationwide dunkers and let them enter into the slam dunk contest. Because, like I said, I talked about and1 mixtapes earlier. At one point, there's this player named the Arab there. He did one of the best dunks I ever seen in my life. He did a 720. And I know some people might be like, well, coach, what is a 720? Essentially, he did 2 360s within the same dunk. He made 2 complete revolutions and dunked the ball. And that's better than any slam dunk I saw in the NBA slam dunk contest. And not only that, but
Yes,
I
and
saw
then he didn't even win.
no, this was doing a and1 mixtape game.
Oh, okay, okay. I thought you were talking about the young man who
No, no,
did.
no, 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 no. Well, I think Obi Toppin's younger brother, I felt like he had the best dunk in the contest. And like you said, he didn't win.
Yes.
That dunk didn't even get a 50. So I agree with you from that standpoint. But the point I'm trying to make, some of the best dunks I saw, even like recent dunks, I saw some dunks last weekend on TikTok. And any of those dunks, like the 5 dunks I saw, all of those dunks would have been the best dunk in the NBA Slam Dunk Contest. So the point I'm trying to make is they need to have like a nationwide tour leading up to NBA All-Star Weekend and They need to have maybe the top 2 or top 4, whatever, compete in the NBA slam dunk contest to garner more interest and attention to it. As far as the skills challenge, that's trash to me. You can almost get rid of it. The NBA 3-point contest, I think you need to get more star-studded players. Even though I know some people might be, well, we know Steph is the best shooter in NBA. Let Steph be in it. Let Clay be in it. So on and so forth. But more than anything, when it comes down to the actual game itself, I think the thing they need to do is have these players actually play with some intensity, like Raymond was saying several weeks back, because just letting the other team go up and down the court, shoot half court 3-point shots, do slam dunk, slam dunk contest type dunks during the actual game without you actually trying to play defense. It makes the slam dunk contest look extremely weak in my estimation. It's trash. It's not anything worth watching. It's worse than the NFL having a flag football game for the Pro Bowl. It's on par with that at this point. So you need to get some intensity back into the game. And it's supposed to be the best pickup game in the world during the NBA All-Star game. And at this point, it's not even that. I'd rather see a Rucker Park game, a Drew League game, or J League game, or whatever, as opposed to actually watching the NBA All-Star game. It's trash at this point. The NBA needs to overhaul it, revamp it. Maybe you give players more financial incentive for being in it. Or maybe you put some type of stakes. Whichever team wins has home court advantage for the NBA Finals, whatever the case may be. But it needs to be better because I was thoroughly unimpressed.
Coach, and I agree with you. I was not impressed as well. I felt like it could have been better. But let's move on to open discussion, one of my favorite things. So, Coach, let me start off with you. What topic do you have for open discussion? And let's shout out Billy Bob. Thanks for tuning in, and any and everyone else who may be tuning in later on, as well as maybe joining us. Thank you for your support and your love. Go ahead, Coach.
In terms of open discussion, several weeks back, well, actually a few weeks back, we talked about the face of the league when it came to Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. It was a real nice discussion, probably the best episode in terms of actual dialogue and discussion that you, I, and King Ray had. However, recently there was a discussion that came about via Shannon Sharp. He talked about the player that's the face of the NBA. First and foremost, he believes that individual has to be married, which isn't the case because when Magic Johnson was the face of the NBA, he wasn't married to Cookie Johnson at the time. He talked about Michael Jordan, and he talked about a variety of other different players that's been at one point the face of the league. In his opinion, he believes that the face of the NBA has to be a married guy, has to be a family guy, and from a corporate standpoint, he has to appeal just to general everyday Americans. I disagree with that premise. They picked up this particular topic on Gil's Arena with Gilbert Arenas and Richard Jefferson and Kenyon Martin and their whole panel and crew in terms of who's the face of the NBA. And I think more than anything, I agree with Richard Jefferson. You have to have a player that excels on the court, but more than anything, somebody that's bigger than the actual game, somebody that crosses over and transcends the sport of basketball. He feels like players like LeBron James and Steph Curry, they transcend basketball. Just like, for example, one point I was a professional wrestling fan. Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair. Ric Flair was the biggest wrestler in the NWA/WCW, and Hulk Hogan was the biggest WWF wrestler. But the reason why people identify Hulk Hogan with wrestling more than anything because he transcended the sport of wrestling. Even though Ric Flair might have been an actual better wrestler than Hulk Hogan transcended the sport of wrestling. So they was talking about which player now is the new face of the NBA. Some people feel like Anthony Edwards is that guy in terms of his emergence. Of course, Zion isn't really that person because he can't keep his weight in check. They also talked about Victor Wembanyama, even though he's not that guy now. He's he's headed in that direction. A lot of people feel like it's not Giannis because even though, Giannis is probably the best player in the NBA, the fact that he's a foreigner, let's be real, he's a black foreigner. Because some of these same people believe the Joker and Luka is the face of the NBA, which I disagree. So some people say it's just strictly the best player in the league. Other people feel like is a person that's bigger than the game and transcends the sport, whether it's NFL, NBA, but this was an NBA topic. So in your estimation, Kay, what do you think the criteria, whether it's for the NFL or the NBA or for any sport, what do you think the criteria should be for who's the player that's the face of that particular league?
Well, I feel someone that shows that dedication on and off the field. You want somebody that represents the NBA or the NFL or whatever topic it is or whatever
League.
item they are, yes, they are representing. So if they are representing that let's say we're talking about the NBA, if they're representing the NBA on and off the field, that is one of the criteria. You don't want someone that goes out, and they are fighting and they are not representing the NBA. You don't want someone to be that face, because who are you who are you supposed to be? You're supposed to be a role model. You're supposed to be able to tell people great things, show people great things, bring them down a positive road, not a negative road. So if someone is doing that, that is a great aspect, as well as someone that is performing on the court as well. You don't want someone that is not performing, because then you'll say, hey, they aren't handling their business. And how can you be the face of the NBA?
So
So,
I don't mean to cut you off. So basically, you kind of agreeing with Richard Jefferson to a certain degree. Someone that's corporate, someone that transcends the sport itself, and in addition
yes.
to that, someone that has that that's excelling on the court or in that particular sport, but it appeals to people outside of that. Essentially, someone that's bigger than the sport.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying they have to be a 15 and 15, or but you want somebody that at least putting some buckets, making some buckets, someone that is going on the court, making some kind of plays, doing something that at least can try to make a name for themselves. They don't have to play 30 minutes. I mean, at least have some time in there doing something that they can say, okay, I can see what they're doing. I can see how they are a representation of the league. You don't want somebody to say, I never saw them play. How can they be a representation of that or face of the league and they're never on the court? They're never doing anything. I don't That's like somebody that says, hey, that's a representation of you. Do you want someone that's not representing you in the best caliber? Probably not. I hope not. And I know that for myself. Somebody that is supposed to be my partner that's not representing me in the best light. And that is a partnership. The NBA and that person, they are becoming a partner, a partnership that they are telling them, hey, I want you to represent me in the best light. You do this, this is what you get from me, and vice versa. And so, and there are other things that can go along with it. I don't think it's necessarily you have to be married, because marriage is not for everyone. But at the same time, because just because someone isn't married, that doesn't mean they can't live the best life. I'm not saying they're going out and be fornicating all over the place, because hey, everyone doesn't believe in that. But at the same time, you want someone that they're doing right by you, doing right by the league, doing right by those that are looking up to them.
So based on your criteria, it sounds as if even though you don't think they should be the best player in the league, me personally, I think they should be one of the top, like maybe 2 or 3 players in the league. You say they shouldn't have average 30 minutes and 30 points a game. Me personally, I think they should put up big numbers, like maybe averaging maybe about 40 minutes, 38 minutes played per game, maybe about 30 points a game. And they should be in contention to be league MVP year in and year out. But in addition to that, like you said, they should have a corporate image, but more than anything, they transcend that particular sport. So it kind of comes back to whatever sport you're talking about. I think that's the reason why when we talked about Lamar Jackson, maybe from a corporate standpoint, like you and King Ray was saying, maybe he doesn't appeal to certain Americans in this country, if you know what I mean.
And yes, I do know what you mean. But guess what? I know for one thing, we don't hear negative things about him. Lamar is he's doing his thing on and off the court. Now, yes, he may not be uh, doing commercials like people want him to do, or whatever the case may be. But we don't hear negative off the court, and he's doing his thing on the court. Well, let me say on the
On the
field.
field, yeah.
Yes. So he's doing his thing, and you don't hear things in a negative light. And not just that, but as he's performing, he's taking care of business. Him and his mother, they're out there getting the best deals that they can for themselves. And there's no telling what other businesses they have that will lead their family to generational wealth. And that's something I feel like, if someone is out there teaching about generational wealth, because as African Americans, we don't hear a lot about generational wealth. So if they can teach people things that they lack that knowledge of, to me, you got kudos from me.
Yes, I agree 100%. And just to kind of close out the topic, many individuals say that you have to have this family image. I don't think it necessarily has to mean that you're married. I think Shannon Sharp ideology of that, I'm not gonna say it's wrong, but I disagree with it. And even though he's not married, but the fact that he has his mom as his agent, to me, that's the persona of family, if you ask me.
Yes, I agree, Coach. I agree. Before we move, let me ask your thoughts on the former NBA player who was sentenced to 90 years to life for some. He was convicted for sexual assault, multiple involvements in that.
Hold on 1 second, boo. Hey, sorry, YouTube. She didn't mean that. She said SA, because YouTube is funny about certain terms like the R word. You actually saying the SA word. Even though I hear other content creators, they use a infinite amount of profanity, but if you say certain words like the R word, SA, they ding your channel
No,
and your
calm
platform.
down.
So yeah, so
What word did I? What
SA.
I said? They say. I,
Yeah. No. I'm just saying. We just saying SA. That's all. So, what is this player's name, Kate?
Rashad Bird.
Actually, I never heard of this particular story. Can you like give me further details, because this is not a real prominent, popular player that I never knew. I never really heard of him, to be truthful. And I'm big in the NFL and NBA. I never even heard of this guy.
Well, the LA Police Department was investigating him. It began in 2019, and they came forward to report that he had been sexually assaulting
SA,
people.
SA, SA.
I'm sorry, SA. Excuse me once again, SA, and that so they were doing an investigation, and so some women came forward from 2005, and so moving forward, he was, charges were brought up against him, and he was arrested in September of 2020, and
So, what team did he play for?
um I can get you details about that, but he was convicted. I can get you that. But what are your thoughts
I mean,
about him?
it's an unfortunate situation, but
Yes.
more than anything, I want justice for the victims, in this scenario, I know him going to prison for the rest of his life, maybe because if I'm not mistaken, I don't think the state of California has the death penalty. But even with that being said, at least he's off the streets. He can't harm anyone else. So that's one thing that's a positive in this particular story. Now I know him spending the rest of his life in prison, it's not going to change the damage that he's already done, but at least he can't harm anyone else. And hopefully the individuals that he did this to, hopefully they can get over the trauma and the PTSD he may have caused them, whatever like trauma or mental health issues he caused them. Hopefully they find peace and they could get over this scenario, get over this situation. And it's extremely difficult, people that's been victims of this. So, hopefully everything works out for the victims in this particular scenario. But I never really heard of this player.
Well,
It's
excuse me, Coach. Now, uh, every news outlet said that he played for the NBA, but he played for the semi-pro team, Los Angeles Defenders. So he didn't play in the NBA.
so basically
The
he
NBA developed him.
yeah, so basically he a NBA D League, G League type player.
Yes,
That's why I
correct.
never heard of him. That's why I never heard of
Yes,
him. But I
correct.
mean, this entire situation is disgusting. It's unfortunate, and praying for the victims in this particular scenario because it's a sad, sad, sad situation.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And our prayers go out to everyone involved, not just one individual, but everyone. Um, and with that being said, let's move on. Is we have so much to cover, but tell me, what are your thoughts on the NFL and the Saints? And I know, because I know we did today. I watched some of the trying these young men trying out trying to show us what potential they have, that they can be in the in the NFL. So did you catch anything with the, what is it called again, the
The NFL Combine.
combine? Yes, thank
Well,
you.
actually, I didn't watch NFL Combine today because for those individuals that caught the beginning of the stream, basically, I went to Southern University's uh, last weekend game. Senior night is going to be on Monday. However, today was their last Saturday game, and as a result, basically, saw Southern University women's and men's team play against Bethune-Cookman. Southern University women, they won in overtime. Southern University men lost. They were up by 11 with about 15 minutes left in the second half, and they blew the lead. They ended up losing by 5. I'll upload some clips to this channel, and I'll give you a detailed breakdown of that particular situation, the scenery, the environment. It was a nice family-friendly atmosphere. I'll give more details on it, but as a result, I really didn't catch too much of the combine, and with everything going on uh, in terms of work outside of YouTube. Basically, it's kind of been everything has kind of been going fast, so I haven't been able to catch any of the combine. And like Kingery and I say, we really don't put a whole lot of emphasis and put too much focus on a combine. I'm focused more on the draft itself. Hopefully the Saints have an excellent draft, and hopefully, like my brother Chad 11 Green and I talk about on his channel all the time on the Southern Baller Show, basically, hopefully, more of these HBCU players get drafted. Whether it's from Southern, Grambling, or just HBCUs in general. And like the brother Billy Bob and I was talking about behind the scenes, also, some of these Mississippi politicians trying to close down our Mississippi HBCUs like J State and Alcorn State, Mississippi Valley. And we need to fight that particular struggle too, because when it comes to rivalry, we big about rivalry and the SWAC. But however, outside of rivalry, more than anything, it's like a brotherhood, and we like family in the SWAC. So we want to keep all our SWAC schools open. We can't afford any SWAC schools to be closed. But like I said, I haven't been able to catch any, combine because so much other stuff going on in the Southern University basketball game today, men's and women's game.
Okay. Yeah. They had a young man. He ran a 4.7, I think it was, and that was just pretty awesome. But he hurt himself in the process. His hip had to be iced. So, there were great potential to see, and we want to shout out.
No, no.
Uh,
From what I heard, I don't mean to cut you off, kid. From what I heard of, they say he ran a 4.2 40. From what I understand, like a
okay,
four
4.2.
two two.
I can mess up some stuff.
Yeah, so it's like one of the fastest 40 times in NFL combine history. Even though this off the record because supposedly Coach Prime had like the fastest many people think. Other people had say Bo Jackson had a faster 40 time. So yeah, you know, in those days they didn't have the same technology they have now. So it's mere speculation, but it's that's one of the fastest 40 times in combine history.
Okay, and let's shout out Jared 11 Green as well as Billy Bob once again. And let's move on to fact or cap. Coach, start us off.
All right, in terms of this particular edition of Factor Cap, it's gonna kind of lead into our final topic. I don't know if you saw the clip, K, and
Yes, I did, but we have that next, Coach.
all
So
right, so no, but we're gonna tie this in. Factor Cap, do you think Cam was? Do you think he was at fault for the entire situation? Oh, you think that's Cap, Factor Cap, and for that particular scenario?
I don't think he was responsible for it. I think every party should be held responsible, but he is looking at himself at a higher regard because
Of his status, right?
yes, correct. Because think about it. Let's say, and I know this is not in the same scenario, but let's say something happens in your congregation. Would it reflect the congregation as a whole, or would it reflect the pastor? If the pastor is involved, most likely people will point the finger at the pastor, not reflect or point the finger at the whole congregation as a whole. So they were looking at Cam because he is a former NBA, I mean, I'm sorry, NFL star, and he has some pull. So they weren't looking at the guys that were involved. They were looking at, even though they did, I saw interviews with them, they apologized as well. But in my eyes, I was looking at, they are apologizing because they will get back, they will get back a lot of
Backlash.
backlash
Yeah.
um, because how he reacted, because I watched a lot of videos as well dealing with that, and people were thinking that if he calls himself uh, somebody, a right hand man of someone, and he's carrying on like that, fighting a former NFL player who's 6'4", six
Five,
five, you
6'5",
know,
250.
and they couldn't bring him down. Who do you think you are? And in the video the guy was saying, oh, he can't beat me, and that was kind of surprising to see that as well. But the point of the matter is, if I just feel like he's thinking, and I hope I'm wrong, but he's thinking he has to apologize because that may be causing him a future job. He may not be able to work with any NFL players nor former NFL players. So that may be causing a problem, or even the the community that he's in, they may isolate him. We don't know what the problem may be, and maybe he may be sincere. But I know one thing, they should be looking at every individual involved.
Well,
What do you say?
my my personal thoughts. I feel like it's big cap. The reason being is because first of all, I understand Cam Newton is a high profile individual, And like my brother Jared 11 Green and I and Big Joe Townsend, like we were talking about last week on his show, of course, all the details wasn't out at the time. We thought that it was some young 7-on-7 high school players, you know, that was involved in the scenario. But
Correct. Correct.
this is the coach of another team. I mean, so basically the coaches of the team, basically it was a 6-on-1. So yeah, there was trash talking going back and forth. And for anybody that played football, is a certain degree of masculinity and bravado and a lot of trash talking. So let me see how I'm going to phrase this. Basically, trash talking is to be expected. So you can expect the trash talking. That's part of the game. So the trash talking, it shouldn't escalate to violence. And essentially, the
And
other
I agree with you, Coach, because you have to know how to restrain yourself.
so Cam, he didn't he didn't initiate anything. And that's the thing about it. When they say he was at fault, they playing a victim. Basically, they're saying everything is his fault. But if you look at the TSP crew, I mean, essentially, they jumped him, and it was like 6-on-1, 7-on-1. So how could Cam be at fault? Even though I understand he's a high-profile individual, and like my brother Jared 11 Green and I said, somebody of his status, somebody of his stature, he should always walk around with security, even if necessary, armed security. Don't get me
Correct.
wrong. Don't get me wrong. You want to be approachable and accessible, but yet you shouldn't give these random guys like the opportunity to necessarily feel like they get close enough to swing on you, because like Shannon Sharp said, like the brother Big Joe Townsend said, like Eli and Peyton Manning have had a passing academy in a 7-on-7 camp for numerous amount of years. We never heard not one single isolated incident at any of the passing the Peyton and Eli Manning passing academies down in Thibodeau in New Orleans and these different southern Louisiana locations. There's not been one singular incident. But yet we got this incident with Cam, and then in addition to that, a couple of years ago, there was an incident where a high school player was talking reckless to him, talking out the side of his neck. And basically, he told Cam, "You trash." And he was like, "Okay, if I'm trash, then why don't you put your cleats on? So I can put my gear on. You come out here and you race me." He said, "If you win, I'll pay your rent." And he had the nerve and the audacity to tell Cam that I wouldn't even waste my time on a trash individual like you. And I'm cleaning it up because we try to be a family friendly show. But the point I'm trying to make is it's a sad scenario, it's a sad situation. I like the fact that Cam is taking ownership because he's the high profile individual. If he would have punched somebody up, he really would have did what he was capable of doing. He gonna get sued. He gonna get all the negative publicity and attention. But the point that you have somebody that played in the NFL, that was a league MVP, that single-handedly carried his team to the Super Bowl, single-handedly carried his team to a national championship in college, uh, a junior college national championship. The fact that he's done all these great things and he's giving back to his community. It's sad how as Black people we tear each other down instead of elevate each other, exalt each other, lift each other up. We constantly tearing each other down, and they should be ashamed of themselves that they even like jumped this man. No, if it would have been me, guess what? All of y'all get y'all stuff, y'all get out of my camp. And the fact that he brought attention to them and he brought attention to the players on their team. I mean, it's sad. The TSP crew, they should be ashamed of themselves as far as I'm concerned, because to me, there's nothing Cam could have said to make 6 or 7 individuals jump on him. And even with that being said, those 6 or 7 individuals, they jumped him and they weren't even successful in jumping him. I mean, I understand, you know, tempers flare, but you have to realize this man played in the NFL. He's a freak of nature athletically. So 7 normal human beings just can't jump him and think they're going to be successful. So I'm glad it didn't escalate into anything more, but it sheds a negative light on our community. Myself being a coach, I always try to instill the right values, in my football and basketball players. but it's a sad situation, you know.
Yes, it is. It's very sad, and for those that have not seen the footage of Cam, we do have it for him speaking out about what happened.
And before you play, Kay, remember YouTube. This is fair use. This is part of your fair use policy. So she gonna play cam footage of him taking accountability of, you know, what transpired last week. So you could go ahead, Kay. Again, fair use YouTube.
Go ahead, Coach. You go ahead, and I'll play it as we finish.
So we having some technical difficulty, Kay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I scrambled, and I should have stayed in the pocket.
Oh, hold on. That's the other clip. I want to play the shorter version of it. Basically, he's just taking ownership and accountability of what transpired in this particular scenario. Now, hold on 1 second. Okay, I'm trying to fast forward to the point where. Oh, hold on. Basically, he was saying, "You got it, Kay?"
Too many people. Too many people are betting on you to keep their lights on.
Mm-hmm.
When he said that, it's never mind me as a father. Because when I say peg, I think about you. I think about the kids who look up to me, and also whether they verbalize their appreciation or just stare in amazement. I feel like I let them down.
Mm.
Because I can't sit up here and say, hey, bro, you got to be bigger than that. And then all of a sudden I do that. And that just goes to show you, you got to always stay in control of your emotions. And that's where the humanistic side came in there.
So, Kay, what are your thoughts on what he said in that particular clip?
I agree totally. I agree totally what he's saying, because no one can be held responsible for his actions. He can only be in control of his own actions, and other people have to be responsible for their actions. That's why I say everyone should have been held accountable, not just Cam.
Well, I
So,
mean,
and I commend him on that, because for him to step up and say, "Hey, I did this, and so many people are dependent on me. They're looking up to me." For him to say that is, I give props to him, even though it was a bit much, the things that happened, but I have to commend him for being stepping up and being a man, because many people will not say, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that the way I did it." People say, "Well, he started it." Like when I watched the interview with the young man and the two young guys, they were brothers who were involved, and they say, "I saw him handling my brother," instead of saying, first of all, it was wrong what we did from the beginning. And we have all these young men, they gave a reason why they did it versus it shouldn't have happened.
I mean, I'm gonna agree and disagree. I think he's a stand-up individual for taking accountability for his actions. But what are you supposed to do when 6 individuals are jumping you or 7 individuals are jumping you?
No. I did not say Cam was at fault. I say the young men who were being interviewed, how they handled it.
I understand what you're saying. That's my whole thing when people saying, I mean, don't get me wrong, I understand he's the high profile individual in this context, and that's understandable. But my point is, he was just defending himself. He was protecting himself. It was a 6-on-1 situation. I mean, he got punked. They had 2 clean shots at him. And of course, clearly they did no damage. They did no damage in terms of the 2 punches that were actually landed. And considering it was 6-on-1, 7-on-1, he fended him off and he held his own. And in fact, he showed a lot of restraint in terms of not actually swinging punches or punching individuals, because had he, considering he's a freak of nature athletically, he's 6'5", he's 250. If you watch him play in the NFL, you've seen him drag 300-pound plus men, like literally drag them. So if he's doing that to other NFL players, what you think he's going to do to the average civilian, even if it is 6-on-1? So just imagine had he really got upset and he started punching people. I mean, basically he could have done a lot of damage. So I think he showed a lot of poise in that situation. I think he handled the situation the best he could in that scenario. But I think just moving forward, I think he should have more security at these events, like my brother Jared 11 Green pointed out last week on the Southern Baller Show. Like, you had individual staff shirts on, just standing there watching and not intervening, not, trying to take care of the situation. But I think he needs to have his own personal security. And even if you need to take a step further, I remember when Jared 11 Green and I met, and the brother Brent Foss, when we met at the LDPC meet and greet, 7-8 had an armed security guard with him. So even if you need to go to that step, because he brought up this valid point last weekend in the game that Aqib Talib, former cornerback for the Denver Broncos, his brother was at. Like, there was gun violence, his brother was deleted. So I think moving forward, I think he just needs to be vigilant, and he needs to take care of himself in terms of having own personal security. And like the brother Billy Bob pointed out, it go to show you how they unsuccessfully jumped him. His hat never even came off during the whole scenario. It wasn't like the hat was glued to his head or anything. So that go to show you that they didn't do an effective job in them attempting to jump him. But I think he handled the situation as best he could under the circumstances.
Yes, and once again, it has a great impact on the community, because as a parent, what do you think bringing forward your children to play sports? Things can happen, but I pray moving forward that things will be shed in a better light. So let's get ready to close out, Coach. And what are your closing thoughts? And guys, thank y'all for tuning in. This is a late show, so thank you once again.
Well, we greatly appreciate everyone that stopped through for the after dark edition of Bayou Sports Talk, episode 35. Hopefully next week we'll be back at our normally scheduled time. Tomorrow I'll talk in full details about what transpired today at the Southern University game. We appreciate everybody that came through and showed us some love. We hope y'all have a blessed, phenomenal evening. Peace and blessings to everyone, and we'll catch y'all on the rebound.
And guys, thank y'all for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, follow, share. And with our closing remarks, we have, and I'm going to keep this going, we have a closing comment from Michael Jordan, our closing quote from Michael Jordan: I can't accept failure. Everyone fails at something, but I can't accept not trying. Guys, y'all have a great evening. Thank you for tuning in. God bless you. Good night.